Pelvic pain is, well, it's an incredibly complex and often really misunderstood topic. So today we're going to use some amazing insights from leading gynecological research to break down exactly why it can feel like such a puzzle and how a clear plan for managing it is actually possible. Let's start with just one number, 15%. That's the estimated number of women of reproductive age who deal with chronic pelvic pain. I mean, that is a huge portion of the population, which really drives home how common this is.
And that leads to the million-dollar question, right? If so many people are going through this, why is getting a straight answer, a clear diagnosis, so often a long and frankly frustrating journey?
Okay, so let's dive right into that puzzle. We'll start with the biggest challenge, understanding what makes diagnosing pelvic pain so tricky in the first place.
Here it is, the absolute heart of the problem. Your pelvis isn't just home to one thing. It's an incredibly crowded space where your gynecologic, urinary, digestive, and musculoskeletal systems are all living right on top of each other. Pain is just a signal, and in this packed area, it can be really hard to tell where that signal is actually coming from.
To start decoding those signals, we first have to understand that pain basically speaks two different languages, and each one describes the problem in a totally different way.
Okay, this analogy is just perfect for explaining it. Think of somatic pain from your muscles or skin as a laser pointer. It's sharp, it's precise, and you can point right to where it hurts. But visceral pain, which comes from your internal organs, that's more like a floodlight. It's this dull, spread out ache that's really hard to pin down, often just felt somewhere in the middle of your body. Understanding this difference is a huge first clue for doctors.
All right, next up, let's talk about time, because how long you've had the pain completely changes what it is and what it means. It can shift from being a helpful warning to a persistent problem all on its own.
You know, acute pain is actually your body's friend. It's a brilliant, built-in fire alarm. You touch a hot pan, the alarm screams, you pull your hand back, and the alarm shuts off. It's a temporary, protective signal that does its job and then goes away.
But chronic pain? That's a whole different story. This is when the alarm system itself is what's broken. It's like the wiring has become faulty and way too sensitive. So even after the fire is out, that alarm just keeps on ringing. Your nervous system basically gets stuck in high alert mode, creating real pain even when there's no new injury. This is a game changer, and it's called central sensitization.
So we've got different types of pain signals, and we've got different timelines. But what is it about the pelvis itself that makes everything so complicated? Well, the answer is all about location.
I love this analogy. Think of your pelvis as a super crowded neighborhood. You've got the gynecologic house, the urologic house, the gastrointestinal house, and the musculoskeletal house, all sharing very thin walls. Now, if a problem pops up in one of those houses, let's say a pipe bursts, it's going to make a racket that all the neighbors have to deal with. That's why an issue in one system can cause symptoms that feel like they're coming from somewhere else entirely.
Let's start at the gynecologic house. This is often the first suspect. Conditions like endometriosis are a really common source of pain. This is where tissue that's like the uterine lining starts growing outside the uterus, and that can cause a lot of inflammation and pain. But then you look right next door, and the urologic system could be the real culprit. Take interstitial cystitis, for example. It creates all this bladder pressure and pain, but there's no infection. And because all the nerve pathways are so close together, the wires get crossed, and your brain might interpret that bladder signal as a problem with your uterus.
And we can't forget about the GI system. Something like irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, can cause cramping that you feel deep down in your pelvis. Even though it's a digestive issue, again, those shared neural pathways mean the brain can easily confuse that pain with signals from the ovaries or uterus.
And finally, sometimes the problem isn't in any of the houses at all. It's in the foundation of the neighborhood itself, the muscles and nerves. Myofascial pain, for example, involves these tight knots or trigger points in the pelvic floor muscles. And these can create a persistent deep ache that acts like constant background static, making the whole picture even more confusing.
So, wow, given all of that complexity, what in the world does a solution look like? Well, the modern approach isn't about finding one single target. It's about building a whole toolkit.
And this is so crucial. Effective management almost never comes from one single magic bullet. Because the pain often involves multiple systems, and maybe that faulty wiring in the nervous system we talked about, the approach has to be just as multifaceted. A really great strategy often rests on 4 main pillars. First, there's specialized pelvic floor physical therapy to release all that muscle tension. Second, medications, which aren't just for pain relief, but sometimes to specifically calm down those overactive nerves. Third, dietary and lifestyle changes to lower inflammation in the body, which can turn down the volume on pain. And fourth, and this is so important, psychotherapy and mindfulness to help rewire that brain-body connection and change how you experience pain. It's about helping to fix that faulty wiring.
And that really brings us to our final and I think most empowering takeaway. When you understand the true nature of pelvic pain, the whole goal shifts. It stops being this frustrating hunt for one single elusive cure. Instead, it becomes a proactive journey of building your own personalized toolkit, a set of strategies that together can bring relief, restore function, and ultimately give you back control.